In this second video about the playground, we will look at it more systematically. We're going to run it for 300 ticks, one school recess, rather slowly, and I will talk you through the various variables. Let's first look at the input variables of this model. Slow you down a bit, guys. Well, actually this is okay. So we have the number of boys and girls. We can vary the class. If the new seed setting is off, we can run with the same class several times. Here I have some simulation-wide variables that I'm not going to talk about, but I will talk about these. These are the individual parameters of the boys and the girls: beauty, kindness, and power, and we can differentiate between boys and girls. Research shows that it's more like this in reality, but we have made them equal so in the demo runs. Here we see graphs of beauty, kindness, and power versus status, and you see the status distribution. We are now in tick 5 and it's already spreading. Here we see all the binary interactions between two agents. It's a conferral of status. Conferral is a word from the theory of Kemper, the status power theory of social relations. Here we see conferrals that are satisfactory to both. Here are those that the recipient gets a little bit lower status than he or she currently has and is not quite happy but not ready to fight. Here, these two is where the recipient is so unhappy, feels insulted, that he or she starts a fight, and the black line is when the group condones the fight, and the red line is when the group condemns the fight, and this is dependent on this slider here. Currently we have a fight-tolerant society. It's also a cultural parameter, this, meaning that children that start a fight are likely to children that win a fight are likely to get more status. The status that a child has changes all the time based on the latest conferral of status that they got and what they already had. So it's an emerging, changing landscape based on these three sources of motivation. In the first film, I mentioned personality as a source of motivation. I said children go to children that are beautiful, but they are also attracted by the status of other children. So they are attracted by high status others. And they are attracted by the relationship they have. And that relationship is built up from the memory of past interactions. So in the beginning, they have no relationship with others, but they remember whether other children were nice to them. And if they were, then they develop friendly feelings. Friendship does not have to be mutual, though. I still have to mention now these sliders and switches about rough and tumble. Rough and tumble is a strategy that children can employ where they give status to somebody else while also pushing and shoving them, so it could be construed by the recipient as violence or as chummy. Like saying bad words and pushing them in order to be nice. Currently, boys are 10 times as likely to do it than girls, and this is close to reality, but I could change that. And also currently, rough and tumble can augment the status conferral by 100%, so I can also turn it off. These things I won't talk about. Now, we've talked about input variables, we've talked about what happens during the simulation, and what I have not talked about is the output variables. So we have the number of conferrals. I talked about that. I did not talk about the output variable that is the most important one, which is the gender status gap. It is the sum total status of all the boys minus sum total status of all the girls at the present moment. And you see currently it's close to 0. We are now in tick 33. Let's run it until the end of the school break, 300 ticks. You see that the gender status gap has now grown to 0.2 on a scale from -1 to +1. That is a considerable status advantage on average for the boys. But you can see that, for instance, this girl here, very strong girl, beautiful and kind, has very high status. She has it all, you could say. Here we have a girl that's beautiful and pretty strong and unkind. She might have fought a lot, and she also has a large status, as has this one here. Of course, it's partly due to chance, but you see a clear correlation between power and status. So we see here the queen bee phenomenon. The highest status person is actually a girl and not a boy. But even so, on average, many girls are at the bottom of the hierarchy, and that's not the case for the boys. Maybe some of you have been in school classes where you knew this phenomenon. So, more details about the model in the coming films.